Something big happened behind the scenes. The White House had a secret plan for Venezuelan migrants, but a leaked document exposed it. The Department of Homeland Security's memo revealed what was really happening. The leak sparked outrage and questions about honesty and fairness. In late 2023, the Biden administration announced it would deport Venezuelans crossing the border without permission, a major shift. Previously, deporting people to Venezuela was nearly impossible due to poor diplomatic relations. Suddenly, flights were leaving, and the government claimed it was about creating order. But the leaked memo told a more complicated story. It suggested the process might not give people a real chance to seek asylum. Thousands had fled Venezuela's crisis, seeking safety in the U.S. The story became about trust. Could the public believe what the government said? The memo detailed a process that prioritized speed over fairness. It showed officials knew the plan would be controversial and strategized to manage public reaction. The heart of the issue, sending people back without hearing their stories, could break the law and a promise. The U.S. had long supported Venezuelans fleeing danger, but now seemed to be sending them back. The gap between public statements and private actions was huge. This story is about broken promises, vulnerable people, and a government caught between compassion and control. We'll explore what was said, what was revealed, and what it means for everyone involved. The stakes couldn't be higher. The White House presented the new policy as fair and orderly. Officials held press conferences saying the border faced a challenge with many Venezuelans arriving. The plan had two parts: new legal pathways for some and quick deportations for those crossing illegally. They called it a mix of carrots and sticks. The carrot, apply legally from home, get a chance to work in the U.S. for 2 years. The stick, immediate deportation for illegal crossings. The message was clear: do not come to the border, use legal pathways. The administration wanted to appear both compassionate and firm. They promised due process, everyone would be screened, and those fearing return could seek asylum. This made the policy sound reasonable and humane. Officials insisted the U.S. would still protect those truly in danger. The public relations campaign was deliberate, aiming to reassure Americans and warn migrants. The White House highlighted international cooperation to bolster their narrative. The official story was about control, order, and fairness. But behind the scenes, a different story was unfolding. The leaked memo would soon reveal the reality behind the promises. The contrast between words and actions was about to come into focus. The public was left to wonder, was the system really as fair as it seemed? The leaked memo from Homeland Security was never meant for the public. It laid out a plan focused on speed, deporting Venezuelans as quickly as possible. Expedited processing meant people could be removed in days or even hours. The memo's most shocking detail: asylum screenings would be rushed and possibly superficial. The official story promised fair hearings, but the memo suggested otherwise. The process seemed designed to make passing the initial fear screening nearly impossible. The government's priority was efficiency, not compassion. The memo also revealed a strategy to manage public perception. It included talking points and instructions for officials to control the narrative. The administration knew the plan would be controversial and prepared for backlash. The document confirmed direct coordination with the Venezuelan government, despite public criticism of its leaders. For many, this was a betrayal of U.S. values. The U.S. had long condemned Venezuela's government, but now was sending people back to it. The memo exposed a policy driven by politics and speed, not just law or humanitarian concern. The reality was far harsher than the official version. The leaked document painted a starkly different picture from the White House's public statements. The gap between policy and practice was undeniable. The truth was out, and it was troubling. The difference between public promises and private actions was stark. The administration claimed every migrant would get a fair hearing, but the leaked memo and reports from the ground told another story. Lawyers and advocates said deported Venezuelans were rushed through the process, often without being asked if they feared returning. Some didn't even understand what was happening before being put on a plane. The promise of careful screening was broken. The policy was supposed to target new arrivals, but people who'd been in the U.S. for months were also deported. This created chaos and fear in immigrant communities. The U.S. publicly criticized Venezuela's government, but secretly made deals to send people back. Some deportees were reportedly detained upon arrival, exactly what they feared. The U.S. promised protection, but actions put people in danger. The gap between words and reality left many vulnerable. Trust was shattered. The backlash was immediate and intense. Immigration lawyers sounded the alarm, arguing the government was violating U.S. and international law. They said the fast-track process made it impossible to protect people from persecution. Lawsuits were filed to stop the deportations. Activist groups organized protests and shared deportees' stories, demanding an end to the policy. They accused the Biden administration of breaking its promise of a humane immigration system. Progressive members of Congress joined the criticism, demanding answers and transparency. Some had met with Venezuelan families and felt betrayed by the administration. The controversy divided the president's own party, making the political fallout worse. Local and state politicians also spoke out, worried about the impact on their communities. Cities with large Venezuelan populations were left scared and confused. Calls for transparency and support grew louder. The outcry came from courtrooms, streets, and Congress alike. The message was clear: the policy was wrong and needed to change. The administration faced pressure from all sides. The demand for accountability was impossible to ignore. The deportation policy put President Biden in a political bind. Critics on the right said he wasn't tough enough on the border, demanding more enforcement. For them, even this policy wasn't enough. They wanted the border shut. On the left, Biden's own supporters felt betrayed by the secretive, harsh approach. Latino voters, a key part of his base, were especially upset. Immigration is personal for many, and the policy damaged trust. The administration tried to balance toughness and compassion, but the leaked memo exposed the imbalance. Both opponents and allies used the controversy against him. For some, it was proof of chaos. For others, a moral failure. In an election year, this was a dangerous place to be. The White House scrambled to explain, but trust was broken. The Venezuelan deportations became a symbol of Biden's struggles with immigration. The fallout could last well beyond this controversy. The president's credibility was on the line. The story became a warning about the risks of secretive policy making. So where does this leave us? Thousands were sent back to Venezuela, many without a fair hearing. Lawyers, activists, and politicians are demanding answers and accountability. Lawsuits and congressional investigations could force changes or halt deportations. The controversy raises bigger questions. What is America's responsibility to people fleeing danger? Can border security and humanity coexist? The public now knows the truth and must decide what comes next. Should there be a full investigation? Should officials be held accountable? The story isn't over. The next chapter depends on what people do with this information. What do you think should happen?